leadership is the single most powerful force in any organization. It shapes futures, it builds belief, or it breaks both. Welcome to Totally Unacceptable. I'm Ed Clementi. This is the show where we call out what most people stay quiet about. The dysfunction, the fake leadership, the career-killing nonsense that too many professionals are told to just accept. But it's not just about them, it's about us too. The way we shrink, stay silent, or play along when we know better. I'm not here to play nice, I am here to tell the truth and to help you lead, grow, and win on your terms. Because letting weak leadership or our own fear hold us back, that is not just frustrating, that is totally unacceptable. So let's get into it. This episode is going to be a little bit different. If you've been following me, you know that in addition to this podcast, I also publish a weekly newsletter, the FireStarter. I drop a new article every Monday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern Time. They're 3 to 5 minute reads on leadership, career, or just life, based on my past experiences, or even as recent as that past week. This has become one of the most important commitments I've made since I started this journey just over a year ago. I just dropped my 69th straight article, consistent weekly publishing. And based on the feedback, this is really resonating. I love getting the messages. This one really hit home. I really needed that this week. But the articles have become much more than that. They become somewhat of a living journal, something that my family reads, my children read, and every word that I write, I have that in mind. So I thought, how could I bring more life to these articles? And I had an idea. What if I crossed this podcast with the FireStarter Sessions? So I decided, starting right now, every month I will do one podcast episode as a dedicated FireStarter session where I will pick an article, I will give a bit of the backstory to the article, I will read the article, pumping life into the article beyond the written word, and then recap the article. And that will be a totally unacceptable podcast cross with my newsletter, the FireStarter, called the FireStarter Sessions. Today, I'm picking a newsletter article that I wrote out of a little bit of frustration. I wrote out of a burning desire to get a very specific message out there about how important leadership is in everyday life, let alone the corporate life. Leadership needs to be invested in, and my mission is twofold. One is to help leaders, CEOs, boards of organizations believe in it so much that they invest in their people. They invest in their people and their leadership capabilities, because leadership builds cultures. If you have a culture problem in your organization, it is a leadership problem. Full stop. Let me say it again. If you have a culture problem in your organization, no matter how big or small, it is a leadership problem. So my great hope is to get leaders, people who can make the difference, who can make the decision, who can invest the money, to teach leadership. You shouldn't just be promoting people into leadership. You should be supporting them in their leadership journey. And leadership can be learned. You simply need one thing, to care. When I was first promoted into leadership, I didn't have all the answers, but I had one thing. I cared to get better every single day. And that helped me go figure out how to be a better communicator, go figure out how to simplify, go figure out how to influence, go figure out how to understand and listen to what people needed such that they would be inspired. And it was the single best thing I ever did. It wasn't just great for my career, which it was, but it was great for all the people who I led. But the other side of my mission is to work with people who are ready to invest in themselves so that they can grow into the leader that they want to be. And if we tackle this on both sides, where we're speaking to the people already in those positions that can make the decisions and make the investment to build companies and organizations filled with wonderful leaders who care to care, who do the right thing, who inspire, who appreciate, all those things I talk about. And on the other side, we have people who take the bull by the horns and they don't just wait for their leaders or organizations to do it, but they start doing it on their own. Well, just maybe we have a shot to create organizations where people are inspired, where people are feeling appreciated, where people are feeling free to innovate, to achieve, and to grow into their potential, and aren't miserable on Sunday nights. That's the mission. But there's a growing belief that that is just fantasy land. And I'm so tired of it. And so I wrote an article called Dear CEO in hopes that 1, 2, 3, or who knows, however many people in positions of leadership would read and really sit back and ask themselves a few questions and then allow themselves to truly answer it with honesty, and then let themselves feel whether or not they're proud of those answers. And for those people that are on the path to leadership, to start thinking about those questions now so that you get good answers when you ask yourself the question after you've been sitting in those positions of leadership. And you don't have to sit there with regret, and you don't have to wonder whose lives you might have negatively impacted. With that, I'll read the article. This article is titled Dear CEO, 5 questions that might haunt you. What if the people in your company could ask you one honest question about how you lead? Would you want to hear it? Now flip it. What are the questions you should be asking yourself? Not the leadership book ones, the real ones, the ones that sit in the back of your mind when it's quiet and no one is watching. With thousands now reading this newsletter, many of whom are CEOs, founders, and senior leaders, I thought, what if I put some of those questions out there? Not for judgment and not for show, but because in this climate, with everything people have endured and the culture cracks growing louder, we don't need more performance metrics. We need more bravery. I've spent 2 decades in and around leadership, helping people grow, watching companies shift, and seeing firsthand what happens when leadership gets it right and when it doesn't. And here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. Most people no longer believe leadership at the top will ever truly change. They've seen too many cycles, too many reshuffles, too many moments where doing the right thing got buried under performance pressure, politics, or personal preservation. They've learned, as long as the results are strong, the system tolerates the cost. Even if that cost is toxic behavior, even if the culture is cracking, even if belief is quietly dying. But I still believe something else is possible. I believe we can win and still do it right. I believe you can lead with strength and conviction and care and walk away proud. But only if you're willing to ask the right questions. The kind of questions you don't ask in a boardroom. The kind you sit with alone, early in the morning, late at night, or in the silence between quarters. Not to impress anyone, just to know deep down that you're living and leading in a way that would make the people you care about most proud. So, will you ask yourself these questions? When I say people matter, have I backed that up in who I've rewarded, in who I've promoted and protected? You see, your team watches what you tolerate. They see who gets the benefit of the doubt. They know who gets rewarded and who gets overlooked. Culture isn't built in slide decks. It's revealed in decisions, especially the quiet ones. Have I created the kind of place I'd want my own child to work in? Not for the brand name, not for the salary, but for the experience. Would you want your son or daughter to report to one of your leaders? To navigate the politics and the pressure and the priorities that you allow? To spend years of their life inside the system you shaped? Have I been brave in my leadership or just careful enough to survive? Because playing it safe is easy, and so is staying quiet. looking the other way, or protecting your reputation while others take the hit. But if you've never risked anything to do what's right, don't fool yourself. That is not leadership. That is self-preservation. Have I made it easy for people to tell me the hardest thing they need to say? Because if they can't, you are not leading, you are commanding. And no amount of pulse surveys will ever fix what fear keeps hidden. If the people I love the most, my spouse, my kids, my parents, saw every decision I made as a leader, would they be proud of how I treated people? Not the strategy and not the speeches, but the moments I chose belief over fear, humanity over politics, and bravery over self-preservation. Let that last one sink in. Because your legacy is not what you say about your career. It's what others say, the people who worked under you and the ones who watched how you moved through the world. Your most cherished relationships, they know your character. And whether you meant to or not, you're leading in a way that tells them something about who you are. So ask yourself, would they be proud? The real bottom line, leadership is the single most powerful force in any organization. It shapes futures, it builds belief, or it breaks both. And at some point, we all have to decide, is it enough to just win the game, or will I care about how I played it? Because you can rise fast, win big, and still lose your way. But you can also lead with strength and integrity and heart and still build something extraordinary, something that performs, something that matters, something that means something. That kind of leadership is rare, but it's possible and it's worth it. So, dear CEO, what will it be? And what will you do today, tomorrow, and every day after to lead in a way that you and the people you love would be proud of? And so that is my Dear CEO article. My Dear CEO plea. There are 68 other articles that take a similar form that are there to help, to make an impact, to get people thinking in a more positive direction. And a lot of them are based on my real life experience. Remember, I've lived this over 2 decades, going from the bottom to the top of my industry, learning and leading the right way, developing a formula that I believe works to develop the very best cultures possible, all under the thought that leadership is the greatest opportunity we are all going to have to make a meaningful and lasting impact in the lives of other people. So, subscribe. And if you want to learn more about me and what I'm doing and how I can help you, go to edclementi.com. Thank you for listening to this newly formed FireStarter session of the Totally Unacceptable podcast. If this hit you, good. Now do something about it. Because knowing, that's not enough. Acting is where everything changes. So take the insight, the fire, the frustration, whatever sparked something today, and move, speak, decide, build. Your future is not waiting for permission, and neither should you. I'm Ed Clementi. This is Totally Unacceptable, and we are just getting started.